Welcome, the anointed ones. The greatest miscalculation your haters ever made was assuming their opinion had the power to define you. Before we go any further, let that settle in your spirit like a truth bomb with its own gravitational pull. Because right now, there are people out there rewriting entire narratives about you, and somehow forgetting that reality still has receipts. They've been running around, talking like they have PhDs in you studies, publishing essays, documentaries, and conspiracy theories about your character. Meanwhile, you're out here minding your divine business, drinking water, glowing, and accidentally proving them wrong just by existing. And here's a fact the world keeps ignoring. Psychologists say people misjudge others within the first 7 seconds. And once that story is set, they'll twist new information just to protect their original wrong conclusion. That means your haters aren't analyzing you. They're defending their pride. They'd rather adjust reality before adjusting their ego. But here's where it gets interesting. And honestly, a little funny. Because while they're busy diagnosing you with problems you don't even have, the universe is quietly correcting their reports. People are starting to talk, starting to connect the dots, starting to whisper things like, "Hold on, maybe they were wrong about this person." And those whispers, they're spreading faster than the lies ever did, because truth has a habit of arriving fashionably late. But when it shows up, it walks in like, "Move, I'm reclaiming my seat." You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to clap back. You didn't need to argue your innocence in people's imaginary courtrooms. All you did was evolve, and that alone exposed every false narrative built around you. And now, the people who swore they figured you out are realizing they never understood the assignment. They mistook your depth for danger, your solitude for attitude, your growth for rebellion, and your boundaries for betrayal. Meanwhile, the world is starting to see the truth. You are the real deal. The one they underestimated, misjudged, and mislabeled because they couldn't comprehend your blueprint. So sit back, breathe, and watch what happens next. Because the same mouths that swore you were a problem are about to choke on the plot twist. You were the proof of greatness they couldn't recognize. And now everybody else is starting to see it loud and clear. Number one, they misread you. Because they've never encountered someone who isn't performing for approval. People who live their whole lives auditioning for acceptance don't know what to do with someone who simply exists without needing applause. And that's exactly why your haters get you wrong every single time. They're used to interacting with people who bend themselves into whatever shape earns validation. They're used to folks who tone themselves down, dress themselves up, or switch personalities like outfits depending on who's watching. So when they meet you, someone whose identity isn't a performance but a principle, they panic. They start projecting motives you don't have, attitudes you don't carry, and intentions you never thought of. They're not responding to who you are. They're responding to how unfamiliar your level of authenticity feels to them. Your presence exposes the amount of pretending they've normalized. You're not trying to impress anybody. You're not calculating how others will react before you speak. You're not performing niceness for social points or pretending humility for attention. You show up as you are, consistent, genuine, grounded, and that's the part they don't trust. To people who wear masks daily, someone without one looks suspicious. They call you distant because you don't overshare. They call you arrogant because you don't lower your self-respect to fit into their circles. They call you anti-social because you don't cling to groups for identity. They don't realize you're not difficult. They're just not used to honesty without theatrics. Every misjudgment they throw at you is really a confession about themselves. When they accuse you of playing games, it's because they play games. When they insist you have hidden motives, it's because they have hidden motives. When they say you're pretending to be something, it's because they literally don't know how to be anything without pretending. You're a mirror they didn't ask for, but one they can't ignore. And mirrors make people uncomfortable when they reveal things they haven't confronted. The funniest part? They don't even hate the real you. They hate that you don't need approval to function. They hate that you're not shaped by fear. They hate that you move through life guided by something internal while they chase permission from everyone around them. You're not confusing. You're just different. And the only reason they misread you is because they've never met someone who's not acting. You walk in truth. And truth always exposes the fake scripts people use to survive. Number 2, they judge you through wounds. They haven't cleaned, not through eyes that see clearly. Most of what your haters believe about you has nothing to do with you. They're not seeing your character, your intentions, or your truth. They're seeing through the filter of their unhealed experiences. When someone has been betrayed, they interpret loyalty as a trick. When someone has lived around fake people, they assume authenticity is a mask. When someone has been constantly overlooked, they take your confidence as an attack. They're interacting with you, but reacting to someone from their past. They're arguing with ghosts while pretending it's you causing the haunting. The wild part is that people rarely realize they're doing this. They genuinely think they're reading your energy or spotting red flags, when in reality, their trauma is holding the pen and writing the whole story. The reactions they throw at you, the suspicion, the jealousy, the hostility, are really emotional flashbacks triggered by how your presence makes them feel. You might remind them of a sibling they competed with, a partner who outgrew them, a rival who made them feel small, or a parent who didn't value them. And without ever stopping to think, they label you based on pain they never addressed. It's not fair, but it's the truth. People treat you through the lens of their injuries. That's why someone can dislike you without ever having a genuine moment of conflict with you. Their spirit is bruised, so your confidence feels like pressure. Their self-worth is unstable, so your boundaries feel like rejection. Their identity is incomplete, so your growth feels like a threat. You didn't trigger them intentionally. You simply existed in a way their wounds weren't prepared for. What makes it even more revealing is how fast their narrative about you starts falling apart when they're forced to interact with the real you. Your consistency disrupts their assumptions. Your kindness contradicts their storyline. Your integrity exposes the cracks in the version of you they created. And that's when the truth hits them hardest. They weren't fighting you at all. They were fighting the pain they've been avoiding for years, and you just happened to be the closest target that made their wounds react. Number 3, they hate how easily you do what they need an audience to attempt. Your haters can't stand the fact that you move through life with a quiet confidence that doesn't need a spotlight or a cheerleading squad. They're confused by how naturally things seem to unfold for you, because they're used to performing their way into opportunities, attention, and validation. You take a step and people notice. They take 10 steps and need to announce all 10, just to feel seen. It's not that your life is effortless. It's that your effort comes from authenticity, not theatrics. People who rely heavily on being praised see your calm progress as a threat. They don't understand how you manage to grow, elevate, or make things happen without yelling your achievements from the rooftops. They need claps to start. You need clarity. They need hype to try. You need purpose. And because their self-worth is tied to being noticed, your ability to shine without begging for validation makes them feel overshadowed. Even when you're not competing with them at all, this is where the resentment creeps in. Deep down, they're frustrated that the world responds to you without you forcing it. They see how you carry your energy, how you show up consistently, how you stay true to your path, and it exposes the amount of pretending in their own journey. They need an audience before they act brave. You act brave before an audience even appears. Your existence reveals the difference between self-generated power and performance-based confidence. What irritates them most is that your results aren't built on showmanship. You're not out here recording every move or trying to prove anything. You're simply living in alignment, and that alone makes an impact they can't replicate. They call you lucky, but it's not luck. It's internal stability. It's your ability to work without seeking applause. And that infuriates people who have mastered the art of looking successful, but haven't mastered the discipline of actually becoming it. Your progress isn't loud, but it's undeniable. And that's exactly why your haters react the way they do. You remind them that authenticity produces a shine that no performance can fake. Number 4, they mistake your discernment for disconnection. Because you don't enter rooms blind. People who navigate life on autopilot can't understand someone who walks into every space fully aware and fully awake. You're not scanning for approval. You're scanning for alignment. You're reading the room, picking up patterns, noticing the shifts in tone, and sensing the motives behind the smiles long before anyone says a word. This isn't paranoia, it's intelligence. It's a skill earned from living through situations where your spirit paid the price for ignoring red flags. So now you enter spaces with your eyes open, not your guard up. And that alone makes people uncomfortable. Those who rely on manipulation or social dominance expect everyone to walk in blind so they can set the tone, control the narrative, or influence the energy. But with you, that doesn't work. You don't get swept up in their charisma or distracted by superficial charm. You see the real dynamics beneath the surface, even the ones people try to hide. And because you don't respond like the average person, they interpret your stillness as standoffishness. They assume you think you're better when all you're doing is paying attention. Your quiet assessment threatens those who need groupthink to feel powerful. They want you to jump in quickly, trust easily, and participate before you understand what's happening. But chosen ones don't operate like that. You don't chase circles, titles, or social currency. You choose where you belong based on energy, not popularity. You're not antisocial, you're anti-forced connections. And that distinction alone exposes people who survive on the approval of the crowd. The moment you pause before engaging, toxic individuals feel exposed. Because your discernment sees the things they try to hide, the jealousy behind the compliments, the insecurity behind the jokes, the competition behind the friendliness. You don't call it out, but you don't fall for it either. That unnerves them. So they label you distant, cold, or hard to approach, not realizing your discernment is the only reason you're still sane. You're not disconnected, you're selective. And the only people bothered by your selectiveness are the ones who were never meant to have access in the first place. Number 5, they don't understand that your distance is surgery, not punishment. When you step back from people, they swear it's an attack. They assume you're trying to prove a point, act superior, or play emotional chess. But the truth is so much simpler and so much deeper. Your distance is correction, not cruelty. It's you removing what's unhealthy so your spirit doesn't rot from the inside out. It's the spiritual version of cleaning a wound. Not glamorous, not loud, not dramatic, just necessary. People who thrive on chaos can't imagine anyone stepping away for a healthy reason. They think everything is personal because their whole world runs on reaction. If they withdraw from someone, it's because they're plotting something or trying to get attention. But when you withdraw, it's because your peace is bleeding, your boundaries are bruised, and your intuition has already whispered, this connection is costing too much. You don't step back to hurt anyone, you step back to stop hurting yourself. Your haters call it attitude because they can't recognize self-protection. They've normalized relationships where everyone tolerates everything, even when it's draining. So when you choose yourself, it shocks them. It feels like punishment because they've never been held accountable by someone who refuses to engage in dysfunction. They're used to people staying even when the environment is toxic. You stepping away disrupts the pattern, so they label it ego. But the people who respect peace, the ones who understand emotional hygiene, see exactly what you're doing. They know that distance can save a soul, a purpose, a future. They recognize the courage it takes to detach when staying would be easier, quieter, or socially acceptable. Your absence isn't an insult. It's an incision. You're cutting away what's draining you so you can heal, grow, and breathe again. Your distance is not a weapon, it's a remedy. It's not a threat, it's a reset. It's not punishment, it's preservation. And the only people who misinterpret it are the ones who benefited from your closeness while disrespecting your boundaries. They wanted access without accountability, and when they lost access, they blamed your character instead of their behavior. Stepping back isn't petty, it's wisdom dressed as space, and the right people always understand the difference. Number 6, their lies don't stick because people eventually notice you bring results, not rehearsed personas. The funny thing about lies is that they sound loud at first, but they never last long around someone who consistently shows who they are through action. Your haters talk with confidence, but they forget that life has a way of revealing the truth without you ever having to defend yourself. They keep trying to paint you as someone unstable, fake, or problematic, but your daily behavior refuses to cooperate with their script. You keep showing up steady. You keep moving with purpose. You keep growing in ways their stories can't explain. And that's exactly why their lies start falling apart piece by piece. People pay attention more than your haters think. At first, some folks may entertain the gossip, but over time they start noticing something strange. The version of you that the haters describe never shows up in real life. It doesn't match your energy, your results, your work ethic, your relationships, or your evolution. You're consistent, while the accusations are inconsistent. You're grounded, while the stories are shaky. You're progressing, while the gossip is stuck repeating itself like it's trapped on a broken loop. And consistency is powerful. When someone lies, their story requires maintenance. They have to keep adjusting details, adding pieces, exaggerating problems, or bringing new people into it just to keep the narrative alive. Meanwhile, you're not even participating. You're too busy becoming someone their lies can't touch. Your success exposes their jealousy. Your growth exposes their bitterness. Your peace exposes their insecurity. The truth is that lies lose strength when there's nothing in your behavior to support them. People start questioning, if this person is so terrible, how come all I see is discipline, kindness, elevation, and self-control? And once the cracks show, the whole structure of gossip collapses. Your elevation is their undoing. That's why your haters grow quieter over time. Their lies start sounding ridiculous next to your reality. Nothing embarrasses a liar more than watching the person they lied about continue to rise. And whether they admit it or not, people always end up siding with the one who produces results, not the one who produces drama. Your life proves them wrong louder than their mouths ever could. Number 7, they wanted you to be a myth. They invented. They hate that you keep proving you're a fact. Your haters didn't just dislike you. They constructed a whole imaginary character and tried to pass it off as you. They needed you to fit the storyline they created, because that storyline helped them feel bigger, smarter, and more in control than they actually were. They needed you to be the unstable one so they could feel steady. They needed you to be the dramatic one so they could seem mature. They needed you to be the fake one so they could pretend they were the honest ones. And when you didn't fit the script, they panicked, because the truth was never the issue. Maintaining their narrative was. They created a myth, and they expected you to walk around wearing it like a costume. But every time you showed up calm, grounded, consistent, and in your right mind, it made their story lose oxygen. Every time you healed, elevated, or made a wise choice, another piece of their fiction burned away. They weren't prepared for the version of you that kept growing, the version that refused to play the villain in their personal drama. They weren't prepared for your integrity. They weren't prepared for your clarity. They weren't prepared for the fact that you don't crumble on command. Your realness exposes their insecurity. It's embarrassing for someone when the person they swore was messy turns out to be the most disciplined one in the room. It's embarrassing when the person they swore was fake ends up being the only one who's genuine, direct, and transparent. It's embarrassing when the person they tried to drag looks healthier, wiser, and more aligned than ever. What they hate isn't your personality, it's your accuracy. You keep proving they were wrong, not by trying, but simply by existing. People who lie about you depend on you staying at the level where their lie was believable. They counted on you staying broken, reactive, or lost. They never planned for your evolution. They never expected your healing to be this loud or your transformation to be this undeniable. Your growth is the evidence that exposes their myth-making, and that's why they're frustrated. Every step forward you take is another reminder that you were never the character they invented. You were the truth they couldn't handle. You weren't the myth. You were the fact all along. Number 8, you threaten them. Because you don't play the status games, they worship. People who measure their value through titles, alliances, and social positioning can't understand someone who simply exists without needing any of that. They spend their lives climbing invisible ladders, competing for attention, forming cliques, and collecting influence like it's currency. Their whole identity is based on being above someone or connected to someone. So when you show up unaffected by all that noise, you disrupt the entire system they use to feel important. You walk into a room and you're not trying to impress anyone. You're not begging for approval. You're not strategizing your friendships. And you're not trying to sit at the right table. You treat everyone the same, with respect, but not reverence. That alone shakes people who think power comes from who they know or how loudly they dominate a space. They expect everyone to recognize their status, but you just see them as regular humans. That humbles them, and they're not used to the feeling. To people who worship hierarchy, someone who can't be categorized becomes a threat. They can't predict how you'll react, who you'll align with, or what you'll tolerate. They can't use social pressure to sway you. They can't manipulate you with popularity. They can't impress you with titles or scare you with cliques. And because you're not playing their game, you become someone they can't control or diminish. Your independence forces them to confront how dependent they are on the approval of others. Your confidence reveals how fragile theirs is. Your freedom exposes their insecurity. They think you're being rebellious, but you're simply being unbothered. You're functioning from a place of inner clarity, not social ranking. And here's the part that really irritates them. The people who chase status rarely possess real leadership. They're loud, but hollow. You, on the other hand, have influence without trying. People gravitate toward you naturally, not because you demanded loyalty, but because your energy is rooted in authenticity. And that's the kind of power they can't compete with. You don't threaten them because you want what they have. You threaten them because you don't need what they worship. Number 9, they hate that you don't break under the pressure that crushed them. Your haters can't stand to see someone thrive under circumstances that would have shattered them. Every storm, every challenge, every moment that should have left you defeated instead became the forge that strengthened your spirit. They watch, frustrated and unsettled, because your resilience exposes their fragility. The strength they've been pretending to have suddenly feels small, hollow, and inadequate in comparison to the quiet, undeniable power you carry every day. They've crumbled under pressures that you've transformed into lessons, scars, and wisdom. The very experiences meant to weaken you became the tools that built your character. And because you move forward without boasting or seeking validation, they feel lost trying to understand how someone could withstand what they could not. Your calm, composed, and unwavering presence highlights their limitations, making them question the narratives they've been telling themselves about who is strong and who is weak. What frustrates them most is that your endurance isn't performative. You don't use struggle as a badge or drama as leverage. You simply survive, grow, and rise, letting your life speak for itself. Every time you stand upright, every time you make a decision grounded in clarity and integrity, it reminds them that real strength is internal, not performative. They hate it because it proves that their version of toughness, built on reaction, comparison, or ego, was never authentic. Your ability to thrive under pressure is more than survival. It's a statement. It tells the world that true strength doesn't collapse when circumstances demand it, and that the person who has mastered resilience doesn't need to validate themselves to anyone. The discomfort they feel isn't about you. It's about their own unhealed weaknesses being illuminated in the presence of your steadfastness. You didn't just survive the storms. You became stronger because of them. And every day you rise is a reminder that your power is undeniable, unshakable, and impossible for them to replicate or diminish. Number 10, your existence makes their manipulation templates obsolete. You don't just resist manipulation, you expose it by simply being who you are. People who rely on psychological shortcuts expect everyone to respond in predictable ways. Guilt, pressure, flattery, triangulation, passive aggression, silence treatments. These are the templates they use to control outcomes, maintain dominance, and secure emotional leverage. But here's the uncomfortable truth they can't admit. None of their scripts work on you. You don't respond to guilt because you don't negotiate your worth. You don't fall for peer pressure because your identity isn't outsourced. You don't get hooked by subtle shade because pettiness doesn't penetrate depth. You don't react to bait because you have mastered the art of emotional stillness. You are the worst-case scenario for manipulators, a person who sees through everything and reacts to nothing. To them, it feels like trying to control the wind. No matter how many strategies they attempt, you won't move the way they want. They interpret your clarity as defiance, your calm as disrespect, your detachment as arrogance. But the truth is simpler and far more devastating. You are immune because you operate from a consciousness they have never developed. It's not rebellion, it's evolution. It's not resistance, it's discernment. It's not attitude, it's awareness. Manipulators depend on emotional fog. You live in emotional accuracy. They depend on confusion. You walk in inner certainty. They depend on reactions. You respond with silence and understanding. And nothing terrifies a manipulator more than someone who can't be steered, provoked, or corrupted. Your presence destroys their strategies. Your insight invalidates their power. Your composure disarms their control. And that's why they resent you. You reveal that their power was never real, only borrowed from the unhealed. Number 11, they misjudge you because you don't announce every battle. You fight. People misunderstand you because you don't treat struggle like a performance. You don't gather an audience each time life hits hard, and you don't parade your wounds just to prove you've been through something. You've learned that some battles can only be fought in silence because the moment you let the wrong people know what you're facing, they either use it against you or celebrate it quietly. So instead of handing them a front row seat to your pain, you take the blow, breathe through it, and rise without fanfare. And this is where the misjudgment begins. The world is loud. Most people announce their discomfort before they even understand it themselves. They want sympathy, validation, or attention. But chosen ones operate differently. Your strength was shaped in a space where nobody clapped for you, nobody checked on you, and nobody realized how close you were to breaking. You learned to stabilize yourself without witnesses. You learned to heal without applause. You learned to rise without reporting every fall. Because you don't wear your scars like badges, people assume you've never been wounded. Because you don't crumble publicly, they assume you've never been tested. Because you keep moving, they assume the road beneath you has always been smooth. They don't see the nights you carried fear quietly. They don't see the internal storms you walked through while smiling on the outside. They don't see the ways you've rebuilt yourself after moments that would have destroyed others. Your private resilience confuses people who only understand strength when it's visible. They can't comprehend the discipline it takes to hurt deeply yet speak softly, to fall hard yet stand quickly, to suffer silently yet deliver consistently. They think comfort made you calm when in reality battles shaped you into someone who doesn't need to broadcast pain to validate experience. Your silence is not evidence of an easy life. It's proof of maturity. It's proof of mastery. It's proof that you've learned to navigate darkness without needing the world to shine a light on you. And that unsettles people, because strength that doesn't show off is strength they can't measure or classify. They can only feel it, and that alone tells them you've survived more than you've ever said. Number 12. They're shocked that people gravitate toward you without you begging for loyalty. Your haters can't process the fact that people choose you naturally, without pressure, manipulation, or theatrics. They've spent their whole lives learning how to keep people close through tactics, favors, guilt, gossip, alliance building, emotional bargaining. They think loyalty is something you must constantly negotiate for, something you secure by performing, pleasing, or proving. So when they watch others gravitate toward you with ease, it rattles them in a way they don't know how to verbalize. You don't chase, you don't pull, and you don't cling. You show up as yourself, and that alone draws people in. It's the calm in your presence, the honesty in your tone, the steadiness in your character. People sense safety around you, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're not trying at all. You're not selling an image, you're not curating a persona, and you're not performing for approval. Authenticity carries a frequency that can't be faked, and people feel it before they understand it. Your haters can't replicate that frequency, so they invent explanations. They tell themselves you must be manipulating people or pretending or doing something behind the scenes. They can't accept that your influence doesn't come from strategy. It comes from substance. They deal in transactions, but you deal in presence. They deal in attention, but you deal in energy. They deal in clicks, but you deal in alignment. What confuses them even more is that your relationships don't fall apart the moment tension arises. People remain connected to you because they value who you are, not what you can give. Loyalty that builds itself doesn't collapse under pressure, and that alone makes them suspicious. They assume there must be some trick to it because they only know how to keep people through fear of losing them. Your existence proves that loyalty born from authenticity is stronger than loyalty born from effort. You're magnetic without trying to pull. You're respected without insisting on it. You're trusted without campaigning for it. And that terrifies those who depend on performance to feel relevant, because your natural influence exposes the weakness of their manufactured one. Number 13, they call you different. Because they don't understand that evolution isn't a performance, people don't like it when someone changes in ways they can't control or explain. They see you stepping into new levels, handling life with clarity, and making decisions that feel foreign to them. And the first thing they do is label it as different. They don't realize that what they're seeing isn't an act or a mood, it's evolution. You didn't wake up one day and decide to act new. You grew, you learned, and you became someone your old environment could no longer contain. You don't announce your transformation, you don't post it for validation, and you don't wait for permission to level up. You embody it in your energy, your decisions, your calm confidence. And that quiet, effortless shift confuses people who measure growth by spectacle rather than substance. They think change has to be loud, visible, and dramatic to be real, which is exactly why they misread you. Your growth isn't for them to applaud, it's for you to live. The environment you outgrow can't understand you because it's still trapped in its old patterns. Your maturity, your insight, your inner alignment, all of it feels alien to those who never moved beyond their previous selves. They take your evolution personally, as if it's an insult, a challenge, or a sudden attitude problem. But the reality is simple. Your spirit doesn't belong there anymore. It has outgrown the limitations, the smallness, and the distractions of a space that once defined you. Your so-called difference isn't rebellion, it's liberation. It's the natural outcome of refusing to be limited by outdated surroundings. And that's why people feel uneasy. They've never seen someone evolve quietly and powerfully without playing the drama, without demanding attention, and without needing their approval. You're not acting brand new. You've just arrived at a version of yourself that the old environment wasn't ready to handle. And every step you take in alignment proves that growth doesn't need performance. It only needs consistency, courage, and the refusal to compromise your spirit. Number 14, they're wrong about you because they only saw the version of you that was healing, not the one that was finished. Most people never wait for a full story before forming an opinion. They saw you while you were in the middle of rebuilding, recovering, and figuring out who you truly were. And they assumed that unfinished version was your final form. They caught glimpses of your struggle and labeled it as weakness. They saw pieces of your healing and mistook them for flaws. They measured you by the parts of yourself that were still evolving and decided that was all you would ever be. What they fail to understand is that transformation isn't linear, and it isn't meant to be observed in fragments. You weren't broken, you were under construction. You weren't limited, you were leveling up. Every late-night fight with your own fears, every quiet choice to choose growth over comfort, every moment you chose integrity over validation. These weren't signs of instability. They were the building blocks of your finished self. Now that you've stepped into clarity, confidence, purpose, and power, the version of you they criticized no longer exists. Their assumptions are outdated, their gossip irrelevant, and their judgments obsolete. They're still arguing with a version of you that was temporary, unaware that you've already moved past it. Their words and opinions can't touch the person you've become, because the person you are now has been forged in private, refined in silence, and tempered by trials they couldn't survive. And that's why they feel unsettled, frustrated, and threatened. They've spent so much energy crafting narratives about someone who no longer exists, only to realize that reality has evolved faster than their assumptions. You're not defending yourself, you're simply living, thriving, and showing up as the completed version they never saw coming. Their misjudgments are inevitable because they are always trying to measure the present with a map drawn from your past. You're not the unfinished story they saw. You're the finished product. And every step you take forward is proof that growth isn't meant to be broadcast, it's meant to be embodied. Conclusion, you are the truth they can't touch. At this point, the picture is clear. Your haters have been wrong about you all along. Every whisper, every rumor, every false narrative they tried to create has crumbled under the weight of your reality. They misread your authenticity because they've never met someone who refuses to perform for approval. They judged you through their own wounds, projecting fear and insecurity onto a person who simply refused to shrink. They hated the ease with which you accomplished things, the clarity with which you navigated life, and the calm strength you carried in the eye of storms that would have destroyed them. They've tried to fit you into boxes, label you, and even manipulate you with tactics that worked on everyone else. But your existence made all of their templates obsolete. Your growth, resilience, and quiet power have always exposed their fragility and shown the limits of their control. They assumed your healing defined you, but the truth is that what they saw was only a fraction of your journey, the incomplete version they thought they understood. Now, stepping into your completion, you have outgrown their assumptions entirely, leaving them arguing with a person who no longer exists, while you thrive, grounded, aligned, and unstoppable. Your life is proof that true power doesn't need to be loud, manipulated, or forced. It flows naturally from clarity, resilience, and unwavering self-worth. The admiration, loyalty, and respect people give you don't come from effort or performance. They come from the truth you embody every single day. You are the living contradiction of everything they thought they knew, calm in chaos, focused amid distraction, and unstoppable in ways that can't be faked or copied. So embrace it, own it, step fully into the life they tried to rewrite, the version of yourself they couldn't imagine, and the energy that makes your presence undeniable. Your haters are only reminders that you are far beyond their comprehension, and every word they speak only amplifies the evidence of your greatness. If this message spoke to you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel to stay connected to the truth that empowers you. Like this video if it reminded you of your own strength. Comment below to share your story. Your experience matters and inspires others who need to hear it. And share this with someone who needs a reminder that being the real deal isn't about proving anything. It's about simply being. Your journey, your power, and your presence are undeniable. Keep rising. The world is watching, learning, and finally starting to understand that you are the real deal. God bless you.